Have you ever wondered what would happen if you were aware of every minute passing by for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Would you be more productive, or would it drive you insane? There's a famous TV show called Mr. Robot where the villain's watch beeps every minute.
This meeting has started. I manage my time very carefully, Mr. Alderson. Each beep indicates 1 minute of my time that has passed.
We wanted to see what would happen if we lived a week like White Rose.
We first decided that the both of us will go through this for a full 2 weeks.
Keep in mind throughout the video that the data was collected in a small pilot study, and it's just the two of us.
We bought wearable devices that can be programmed and developed a simple application that beeps on the minute every minute.
There it is.
Then we tested it out in public. And because the sound was annoying, we decided to make a few modifications to use vibrations instead of alarms. Okay, now we're done.
Our main goal was to see if we were more productive as a result of this change. First, we decided to record ourselves as we were speaking in our regular production meetings. Our plan was to use natural language processing algorithms to see if we were speaking faster than usual or covering more topics than usual. In other words, were we getting more done? We also kept track of our work hours in a log and answered custom-designed questionnaires daily about our productivity.
That should have been it, but we had a random thought.
What if this makes us more anxious?
It became clear that we needed to add on physiological data, so we decided to collect heart rate, blood pressure, sleep data,
and some more stress questionnaires.
So we first completed a full week without the minute-by-minute notifications. During this week, we went about our daily life. Brushing our teeth, going to work,
Just heading to work, normal day.
eating some delicious Indian food, just a normal Sunday, sleeping. This was our baseline data, which we'll come back to in just a bit. This just gives us a reference to compare our study week with. It was at first kind of shocking how long a minute truly was.
I was on the train on my way home, and the train stopped in the middle of the tunnel. And the buzzing's going off every minute, and everyone's getting frustrated, and it's running on like 10 minutes, and these things are going off, and it's just like, it was unreal. I was like so anxious, like I've never been before.
Let's just say I'm feeling every minute of this wait right now.
To study whether we understood intuitively how long a minute was, we came up with a simple test. We went on Google News, selected the first random article we saw, and removed all the line and paragraph breaks. We then read the article out loud and said stop
106.75
when we felt that a minute had passed. We kept track of how far off from a minute we actually were.
This had a surprising result. We actually got worse at estimating how long a minute was. Again, we spent 10 hours a day getting notifications every minute for 7 days a week, and we got worse at predicting how long a minute truly was.
We think there's a really simple explanation for our results: dependence on the watch. When we did the test during the study week, we think it was hard for our brain to calculate a minute passing without the constant notifications, because all day our brain was informed about time. It was almost like having a crutch removed. It was hard to adjust as a result.
So maybe if you're a supervillain who gets notified every minute, you're really good at time management. That is until you remove that watch and you are disoriented.
Now, sleeping with the watch was
a disaster. I just got up to walk around because I can't fall asleep. I keep anticipating the buzzer going off, the vibration going off.
I actually don't think it was that bad.
Anyways, we stopped the notifications after the first night because it was too intrusive. But even ignoring that first night, we found something really fascinating. The amount of time that we slept and the quality of our sleep was decreased during the study week. So that heart rate data that we collected during both weeks may help explain why our sleep got worse. You see, during the study week, during the awake hours while we're being notified, our heart rate was a lot higher. So I think going into sleep, our body was a lot more stressed, and that affected the quality of our sleep. We also found some related research showing the effect of high heart rate and stress on quality of sleep. So even though we didn't notice it in the moment, our body and our sleep were physically affected by this very simple intervention.
Yeah, I definitely didn't feel it. I didn't feel stressed or like my heart rate was higher. It's obvious that we were more stressed and had become somewhat dependent on the watch. But the most important question is, were we more productive?
That ends up being a really hard question to answer.
So we start with the most relevant productivity measure, our speaking habits. After all, that's what triggered this whole study.
I think it might help us sleep faster. We used a state-of-the-art speech diarization algorithm to classify who spoke when during our meetings. So this gave us an idea about how long each speaker was talking, how long the silences were, and the turn taking back and forth in dialogue.
So the idea was you might speak in shorter sentences or get to the point really quickly if you were constantly reminded of how much time you were speaking for.
We calculated the amount of time that each of us spoke and the amount of silence in between. The amount of silence decreased on average around 8% during the study week, but there was no major drop in our speaking time. In other words, we didn't really change the way we spoke, but were slightly more efficient in terms of minimizing the silence between our dialogue. We also looked at the number of times we took turns speaking and found that we were cutting each other off less frequently during the White Rose week. This was surprising.
You're just wasting.
Do you ever lay in bed at night and just have like existential dread?
No. So we also collected our phone's screen time data. So that gave us an idea about how long we were spending on our phones, on productivity apps, on social networking, entertainment apps.
Overall, both of our screen times went down during the study week. For me, it went down almost 20%.
20% is a pretty significant drop.
Yeah, definitely.
So the number of times that we picked up our phone also dropped from 8 times an hour to 7 times an hour.
One minor change that might inform us a little more about productivity is step count. So we found that we would actually stand up and walk around a lot more during the study week, which means that we were moving from task to task more often and also were feeling kind of restless.
I find myself switching from task to task a lot faster than I usually would. So I'd get, I think, like kind of bored or anxious working on something for too long, and I would switch. And this happened a lot more frequently than it usually does for me, which is kind of interesting.
Our step counts confirm this. They were drastically increased during the study week, especially the first 2 days when the notifications were relatively new for us. The one other result that we should mention are from those stress surveys. Our average perceived stress increased. This is backed up physiologically with our heart rate and other measures.
What's cool though is that nearly every other measure that we collected, including anxiety, irritability, fatigue, they either stayed the same or even dropped during the study week. This probably means that the notifications take some getting used to. So when we first started the study, we were more negatively affected. But as our bodies adjusted, I think we started benefiting a little bit psychologically, and we started benefiting from being aware of time constantly.
Specifically, it seems like we were stressed, but not anxious. It's kind of like how a baseball player or a football player can be stressed during a game, but still perform well.
So what does this all mean? We took a very simple idea and we tried to collect every possible bit of data to try to understand whether White Rose's technique for productivity actually works.
Our bodies took some time to get habituated, and when they did, there were some small but helpful improvements to productivity. We did not notice any improvements to our internal time perception, but again, it was a small study and it was just 2 of us.
Maybe tracking every minute of every day isn't the best idea, but I actually found that using this during meetings or work sessions keeps me more focused.
Our final message, if used sparingly, this could be a really useful tool for productivity.